Think and Grow Rich. 20 Things That Changed the World. Before empires were built, before fortunes existed, before names were written into history, there was a single invisible force at work. Not money, not luck, not talent, a decision. Every great transformation in human history began the same way, with a moment when someone decided they would no longer live small. This audiobook is about that moment. This is Think and Grow Rich. 20 Things That Changed the World. Not as theory, not as nostalgia, but as a living philosophy you can apply right now. Because wealth is never created first in the hands. It is created first in the mind. And most people never learn that. They wait for permission. They wait for clarity. They wait for confidence. They wait for the right moment. But history rewards only one type of person, the one who decides before certainty arrives. Chapter 1. Desire, the starting point of all achievement. Nothing begins without desire, not success, not wealth, not transformation. Weak desires create weak lives. Strong desires reshape reality. Look closely at every person who ever built something extraordinary, and you will find the same pattern, an inner fire that refused to go out. Desire is not wishing. It is not hoping. It is not daydreaming. Desire is commitment with emotion attached. It is the moment you say, I must have this, no matter what version of myself I need to become. Without desire, there is no movement. Without movement, there is no growth. Without growth, there is no change. This is why most people stay exactly where they are. They want comfort more than achievement. They want security more than expansion. They want approval more than progress. And so their fire never starts. But when desire becomes intense enough, it changes everything. You stop negotiating with yourself. You stop waiting for motivation. You stop asking if and start asking how. That moment, when desire becomes non-negotiable, is the true beginning of wealth. Chapter 2. Faith. Believing before you see. Faith is not blind optimism. It is trained conviction. Every great achievement requires belief before evidence. If you wait to believe until success is guaranteed, you will never act. And if you never act, nothing changes. Faith is the ability to hold a picture in your mind long enough for reality to catch up. Most people live in reverse. They believe only what they see. They trust only what already exists. They follow only what is proven. That is why they never lead. The world does not move forward through followers of certainty. It moves forward through believers of possibility. Faith is strengthened by repetition, by self-talk, by environment, by what you allow into your mind daily. Your mind is always listening. If you speak doubt, it learns doubt. If you speak confidence, it learns confidence. If you speak limitation, it builds walls. If you speak possibility, it builds bridges. Wealthy thinkers do not wait for belief. They train it. Chapter 3. Auto-suggestion. Programming your destiny. Your subconscious does not argue. It accepts. Whatever you repeatedly tell it, emotionally, consistently, becomes truth. This is why self-talk is not harmless. It is destiny in rehearsal. Every time you say, I'm bad with money, every time you say, that's not for people like me, every time you say, I could never do that, you are programming limits into your future. Auto-suggestion is the act of consciously feeding your mind the identity you are becoming. Successful people speak differently, even when no one is listening. They rehearse courage. They rehearse abundance. They rehearse discipline, because the mind moves first. the body follows. Chapter 4. Specialized knowledge, the leverage advantage. General knowledge impresses. Specialized knowledge pays. The world does not reward what you know. It rewards what you can apply. Wealth is built by people who learn deeply in narrow lanes, then leverage that knowledge repeatedly. You do not need to know everything. You need to know something valuable extremely well, and you need the discipline to apply it daily. The richest people are not the smartest. They are the most focused. Chapter 5. Imagination, the workshop of the mind. Everything you see around you was once invisible. Every invention, every company, every system of wealth, first imagined, then believed, then built. Imagination is not fantasy. It is the blueprint phase of creation. Those who cannot imagine differently cannot live differently. The future belongs to people who think beyond their current circumstances. Chapter 6. Organized planning, turning vision into action. Dreams without plans remain wishes. Planning is faith made practical. A plan does not need to be perfect. It needs to exist. Most people fail not because they lack talent, but because they lack structure. Action organizes belief. Belief fuels action. Together, they create momentum. Chapter 7. Decision, the dividing line. Successful people decide quickly and adjust later. Unsuccessful people hesitate and regret forever. Decision is power. Every delay drains energy. Every commitment restores it. The moment you decide, the mind aligns. Chapter 8. Persistence, the difference maker. Failure is not final. Quitting is. Every breakthrough arrives just after the point most people give up. Persistence is not stubbornness. It is loyalty to your future self. Those who refuse to quit eventually win. Always. Chapter 9. Mastery of self. If you do not control your thoughts, emotions, and habits, they will control you. Wealth begins with self-discipline. The strongest empires are built inside first. The power of the mastermind. No one succeeds alone. Surrounding yourself with thinkers, builders, and challengers multiplies your momentum. Your environment programs your expectations. Choose wisely. Next part of the audiobook 2, The Mindset That Moves the World. Dear viewers, write which city you're from. It's interesting to see which corners of the world are watching our videos. If there is one truth history keeps repeating, it is this: the world does not change because of circumstances. It changes because of thinking. Empires rise and fall. Technologies appear and disappear. Fortunes are made and lost. But the mindset behind wealth remains constant. This message takes you deeper, not into motivation, but into understanding. Because once you understand how wealth really works, you stop chasing money and start attracting it. Chapter 10. Why most people work hard and stay poor. Hard work alone has never created wealth. That sentence may feel uncomfortable, but it is true. Millions of people wake up early. They sacrifice, they sweat, they struggle, and still nothing changes. Why? Because effort without direction produces exhaustion, not freedom. The world does not reward effort, it rewards value, and value is created by thinking, not by labor alone. The poor are taught to trade time for money. The wealthy are taught to build systems that multiply time. One works harder, the other works smarter and longer lasting. This is not about intelligence, it is about conditioning. Most people are trained to survive, not to build, to obey, not to design, to consume, not to own. And so they run faster on the same treadmill, wondering why the scenery never changes. Chapter 12. The Power of Clear Purpose. Wealth follows clarity. Not hustle, not desperation, not blind ambition. Clarity. When your purpose is vague, your actions are scattered. When your purpose is precise, your energy concentrates. The mind cannot serve two masters. Either it moves with direction or it drifts with distraction. Most people never decide what they want. They react to what life throws at them, and reaction never creates dominance. The wealthy define the destination first, then reverse engineer the path. They ask, who must I become? What skills must I develop? What habits must I eliminate? Purpose turns confusion into focus. Focus turns effort into leverage. Chapter 13, The Law of Compensation. You are paid in direct proportion to the demand for what you do, the difficulty of replacing you, the scale at which you deliver value. This is the law no school teaches. If what you do can be replaced easily, it will be paid cheaply. If what you do solves expensive problems, it will be rewarded generously. Wealth is not moral, it is mechanical. It responds to value like gravity responds to mass. The question is never, how hard do I work? The question is, how much value does my work create, and for how many people? Chapter 14, Thinking in Systems, Not Paychecks. The paycheck mindset is small, even when the number is large. Why? Because it ties income to presence. No presence, no pay, no energy, no income, no time, no money. Systems break that rule. A system pays you once built, whether you are awake or asleep. Books, businesses, intellectual property, investments, processes. The wealthy think in terms of assets. Everyone else thinks in terms of hours. And hours always lose to leverage. Chapter 15, Decision Makes You Dangerous. Most people hesitate their entire lives. They wait for more confidence, more information, more reassurance. But clarity comes after commitment, not before. Decision is the act that separates observers from creators. The moment you decide, something shifts internally. Your mind stops wandering and starts organizing. Opportunities notice decisiveness. So does luck. Indecision repels both. Chapter 16, Failure is feedback, not defeat. The wealthy do not fear failure, they use it. Failure is data. Failure is instruction. Failure is refinement. Only ego interprets failure as identity. The mind trained for wealth asks, what worked? What didn't? What do I adjust next time? Quitting is emotional. Learning is strategic. Chapter 17, Emotional Control Creates Financial Control. Money obeys calm minds. Impulse destroys wealth faster than ignorance ever could. The ability to pause, to think, to choose deliberately is a financial superpower. Wealth is not built in excitement. It is built in discipline. Those who master emotion master outcomes. Chapter 18, The Inner Shift That Changes Everything. At some point, every wealthy person experiences the same realization: I am responsible, not the economy, not the system, not the past. Responsibility is not blame. It is power. The moment you take full responsibility, you stop waiting for rescue and start creating results. And this is where most people turn back, because responsibility is heavy, but it is also freedom. In the next part, we go deeper into the 20 timeless forces that reshaped industries, societies, and individual lives. Principles so powerful, they still work today, regardless of background, age, or starting point. Next part of the audiobook. 3. The Ideas That Refuse to Die. Dear viewers, please write in the comments what assets you buy or are interested in. Perhaps these are stocks, or maybe cryptocurrency. It is interesting to see how you structure your investment portfolio. Also, Please write what you think about real estate. Is it still relevant to buy flats today? There is a reason some ideas survive centuries, while others vanish within a generation. It is not luck, it is not timing, it is not chance. It is alignment with how the human mind works. This message is about the forces that quietly shape civilizations, fortunes, and personal destinies, whether people are aware of them or not. These are the ideas that refuse to die because they were rooted in truth. Chapter 19. Thought always precedes reality. Nothing physical exists without first existing mentally. Every invention, every company, every movement, every fortune. It began as a thought, fragile, invisible, doubted. The world is built twice, first in the mind, then in reality. Most people live backward. They wait for circumstances to change before they think differently. The wealthy reverse that order. They change their thinking first, and reality is forced to follow. Chapter 20. Belief is a multiplier. Belief does not create skill, but it multiplies the effect of skill. Two people can have identical talent. One believes in their future, the other doubts themselves. Over time, the gap becomes enormous. Belief determines how long you persist, how boldly you act, how much rejection you tolerate, how fast you recover. The world bends to those who believe long enough to act consistently. Chapter 21. The power of autosuggestion. Your mind listens even when you don't realize it. Every repeated thought becomes instruction. I'm not good with money. I'll never be rich. People like me don't succeed. These are not opinions. They are commands. Autosuggestion programs the subconscious, the part of the mind that controls habits, decisions, and emotional reactions. Change the inner dialogue, and behavior changes without force. Chapter 22. Environment shapes ambition. Ambition does not grow in isolation. Your environment either feeds your goals or starves them. The people you listen to, the conversations you tolerate, the standards you accept. Wealthy thinkers guard their environment fiercely, not because they are arrogant, but because they understand influence. What surrounds you becomes you. Chapter 23. Persistence outlasts talent. Talent starts races. Persistence finishes them. History is full of talented people who quit early. Persistence is not intensity. It is continuity. The ability to show up again after disappointment, again after silence, again after failure. The world eventually rewards those who refuse to leave. Chapter 24. The invisible ally. Faith. Faith is not religion. It is trust in the unseen process. It is the ability to act without immediate evidence. Every great achievement requires faith, because proof always comes last. Those who need certainty never move. Those who move create certainty. Chapter 25. The Master Mind Principle. No great success is built alone. Ideas compound when minds align. The wealthy seek collaboration, not validation. They understand that shared vision multiplies execution. Isolation limits scale. Collaboration expands it. Decision locks in destiny. Once again, decision appears. Not preference, not wish, not hope. Decision. When you decide, the mind commits resources. Energy follows commitment. Undecided minds drift. Decided minds build. Chapter 27. Fear is a signal, not a stop sign. Fear appears before growth, always. The poor interpret fear as danger. The wealthy interpret fear as direction. Fear means you are close to expansion. Avoiding fear guarantees stagnation. The law of cause and effect. Nothing happens randomly. Every result has a cause. Every outcome has a pattern. When you understand cause, you control effect. blame dissolves, responsibility emerges, and with responsibility comes power. Chapter 29. Time rewards consistency. Short-term thinking creates long-term regret. The wealthy think in decades, not days. Consistency compounds quietly, then suddenly. Most people quit just before momentum appears. The patient inherit the future. Chapter 30. The moment everything shifts. At some point, something clicks, not externally, internally. You stop asking, "Is this possible?" and start asking, "How do I execute?" That moment marks the transition from dreamer to builder. And once that shift happens, there is no going back. Next part of the audiobook 4. When ideas become daily discipline. Before we continue, I want to say, my dear friend, if you are watching this video, then you are definitely on the right track. Like, subscribe, and write in the comments which topic or problem interests you the most. There is a quiet moment that separates people who understand principles from those who become them. It is the moment when inspiration fades and routine begins. This is where most people stop. They love the idea of wealth. They admire the philosophy of success. They enjoy the motivation, but they resist the discipline, because discipline has no applause, and yet discipline is the bridge between thinking and becoming. Chapter 31. Thinking is useless without structure. Big thinking without structure is just imagination. Structure turns ideas into systems. The wealthy do not rely on motivation. They build routines that function even when motivation disappears. They decide when they think, when they learn, when they act. When they rest, chaos drains energy. Structure preserves it. Your calendar reveals your priorities long before your words do. Chapter 32. The habit of daily mental control. Your mind wakes up neutral. It becomes programmed by whatever you feed it first. News, social media, other people's fears, or vision, purpose, intentional thought. Successful people begin the day by choosing the tone of their thinking. They do not let the world set their emotional temperature. Mental control is not suppression. It is direction. Chapter 33. Money follows. Value, not effort. This is one of the hardest truths to accept. The world does not reward effort, it rewards value. You can work harder than anyone and still remain poor. Value is leverage, skills that scale, knowledge that transfers, systems that repeat. The wealthy ask one question constantly: how can I make this useful to more people without more effort from me? That question alone changes everything. Chapter 34. Long-term vision, short-term action. Dreaming big is useless if you act small, and acting big is impossible without direction. The wealthy think far ahead, but act today. They break massive goals into daily actions so small they feel almost unimpressive. But those actions stack. Momentum is created through repetition, not intensity. Chapter 35. The discipline of delayed gratification. Wealth demands patience, not passive waiting, active restraint. The ability to say no to short-term pleasure for long-term freedom. Impulse spending, emotional decisions, comfort-seeking behavior, these keep people trapped. Delayed gratification is not punishment, it is strategy. Freedom always costs comfort first. Chapter 36. Failure as feedback. Failure is not a verdict, it is information. The wealthy analyze failure calmly. What worked? What didn't? What needs adjustment? Emotionless evaluation creates progress. Those who take failure personally stop learning. Those who study it grow unstoppable. Chapter 37. Repeatable systems beat. One time wins. One lucky break changes nothing. Systems change everything. A system is a process that produces results without constant effort. The wealthy think in systems: income systems, learning systems, health systems, decision systems. If something cannot be repeated, it cannot be scaled. Identity locks in results. Eventually, success stops being something you chase and becomes who you are. You no longer try to think like a builder. You are one. Identity governs behavior. When you change how you see yourself, habits adjust automatically. The goal is not wealth. The goal is becoming the type of person wealth follows. Chapter 39. The Point of No Return. There comes a moment when discipline replaces doubt. When your routine no longer feels forced, it feels necessary. That is the moment progress becomes inevitable. In the next message, we will go deeper into money mechanics, how disciplined thinking translates into assets, income streams, and financial leverage in the real world. Because mindset opens the door, but execution builds the house. Next part of the audiobook. 5. When wealth becomes a mechanism, not a wish. There is a point where money stops feeling mysterious, where it no longer feels emotional, no longer feels random, no longer feels reserved for other people. That point arrives when you stop seeing money as luck and start seeing it as mechanics. Wealth is not magic. It is math, behavior, and time, combined with discipline. Chapter 40. Money is a tool, not a scorecard. Most people attach their identity to money. Too little, shame. Too much, ego. The wealthy detach emotionally. Money is not proof of worth. It is fuel. Fuel for options, fuel for leverage, fuel for time. When money becomes a tool, decisions become clearer. Chapter 41. Income is temporary. Ownership is permanent. Here is a rule that quietly changes everything. Income stops when effort stops. Ownership pays even when you don't show up. This is why the wealthy obsess over equity, assets, intellectual property, systems. They ask, how do I convert today's effort into tomorrow's income? That question alone separates workers from builders. Chapter 42. The compound effect nobody feels at first. Compound growth is invisible in the beginning. It feels pointless, slow, almost insulting. Then suddenly, it becomes unstoppable. Wealth builds the same way trust does, slowly, then all at once. Those who quit early never experience the curve. Those who stay consistent eventually outrun everyone. Time is the real currency. Money can be earned again. Time cannot. The wealthy measure decisions in years, not moments. They invest time early to buy freedom later. They trade short-term inconvenience for long-term control. Time-rich thinking always creates money-rich outcomes. Chapter 44. Leverage is the multiplier. Hard work has a ceiling. Leverage removes ceilings. Leverage can be capital, knowledge, technology, people, systems. The wealthy don't ask, how hard can I work? They ask, what can work without me? That shift creates exponential results. Chapter 45. Risk is not what you think. Avoiding risk feels safe, but the greatest risk is staying dependent. Dependence on one income, one employer, one skill. The wealthy manage risk. They don't avoid it. They diversify, test, adjust, and scale. Fear shrinks options. Education expands them. Chapter 46. Cash flow creates confidence. Confidence does not come from motivation. It comes from stability. Predictable cash flow removes desperation. Desperation clouds judgment. Stability sharpens it. This is why the wealthy build multiple streams, not because they are greedy, but because they value calm. Chapter 47. Money reveals who you are. Money does not change people, it reveals them. If you are disciplined, money amplifies discipline. If you are reckless, money accelerates chaos. This is why mindset must come first. Wealth magnifies character. The quiet shift. Eventually, money stops being the goal. Freedom becomes the goal. Choice becomes the goal. And money simply follows. Chapter 49. Identity is the foundation of permanent wealth. Before money becomes stable, identity must become stable. This is the part most people skip. They chase tactics. They copy strategies. They imitate outcomes. But they never change who they believe they are. And money will never permanently stay with an identity that does not match it. Here is the truth no one tells you. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your identity. If deep down you still see yourself as someone who gets lucky sometimes, someone who struggles with money, someone who isn't really good with finances, then no strategy will save you long term, because identity always wins. The wealthy do not just do wealthy behaviors. They are people who expect abundance, assume responsibility, take ownership, delay gratification, think in decades, not days. Their actions flow naturally from who they believe they are, and that belief was built deliberately. Identity is shaped by the standards you tolerate, the habits you repeat, the language you use internally, the promises you keep to yourself. Every time you follow through, your identity strengthens. Every time you break your word to yourself, it weakens. Money responds to consistency of character. This is why discipline matters more than motivation. Motivation is emotional. Discipline is identity-driven. When discipline becomes automatic, wealth becomes predictable. The shift happens quietly. One day you stop asking, "Can I afford this?" and start asking, "Does this align with who I am becoming?" That is when money stops controlling you. Chapter 50. Patience is the most aggressive wealth strategy. Patience is misunderstood. Most people think patience means waiting. They think it means doing nothing. They think it means slowing down. That misunderstanding keeps them poor, because real patience is not passive. It is strategic endurance. The wealthy do not rush. They move deliberately. They compound quietly. They build systems that outlast emotions. Impatience is expensive. It forces bad decisions. It creates short-term thinking. It sacrifices long-term gains for instant relief. Every financial mistake has impatience at its root. Look closely and you'll see the pattern. People rush into investments they don't understand. They quit businesses before momentum builds. They abandon skills right before mastery arrives. They sell assets at the first sign of discomfort, not because the strategy failed, but because they couldn't sit with uncertainty. Patience is the ability to stay committed when results are invisible. It is the discipline to keep planting seeds even when the ground looks empty. This is where wealth is actually created. In the silent period, in the boring phase, in the accumulation stage no one talks about. The world rewards urgency with attention, but it rewards patience with ownership. Ownership of assets, ownership of time, ownership of freedom. Here is a rule the wealthy understand deeply. Anything meaningful grows slowly. Skills, trust, capital, reputation, influence. Fast money disappears fast. Slow money compounds forever. This is why the rich are calm. They are not anxious because their strategy is not dependent on today. They are not reactive because their plan spans years. They know something most people forget. Time is either working for you or against you, and patience decides which side you're on. When you stop rushing, something powerful happens. You stop chasing. You stop forcing outcomes. You stop making emotional decisions. You start building, and builders always win. Chapter 51. Attention is the real currency. Money follows attention. That sentence alone can change how you live, because what you focus on expands. What you ignore disappears. And what you allow to constantly interrupt you will quietly control your future. The wealthy understand this at a level most people never reach. They don't just manage money. They protect attention. Attention is finite. You can't create more of it. You can only decide where it goes. And every distraction is a withdrawal from your future wealth. Social noise, endless opinions, breaking news, other people's emergencies, other people's lifestyles, all of it competes for the same limited resource, your focus. This is why distraction is the modern form of poverty. Not because distractions are evil, but because they fracture thinking. A distracted mind cannot plan. A distracted mind cannot build. A distracted mind cannot compound effort over time. It jumps. It reacts. It consumes. And consumption without creation leads nowhere. The rich are not smarter. They are quieter. They spend long periods thinking without interruption. They allow ideas to mature. They sit with problems until clarity emerges. While others scroll, they study. While others react, they design systems. Silence is not emptiness. It is space for leverage. Here is the uncomfortable truth. Most people are not poor because they lack opportunity. They are poor because they give their attention away cheaply. They wake up already reacting. They spend their best hours consuming. They leave their most important work for later. Later never comes. Attention precedes discipline. You cannot be disciplined about what you never focus on. You cannot grow what you rarely think about. That's why the wealthy obsess over a few things: their health, their skills, their assets, their long-term vision. They say no often. They protect mornings. They schedule thinking time like meetings, because they know what you protect grows. What you neglect decays. Control your attention and money becomes easier. Lose your attention and money becomes stress. Every fortune ever built began with a person who decided this matters more than the noise. Chapter 52. Simplicity is the hidden advantage. Friend, write your opinion on this topic in the comments. Do you agree with us or not? I'm interested to hear your thoughts. Most people believe wealth is built through complexity. More strategies, more hacks, more information, more options. The wealthy know better. They win through simplicity repeated consistently. Complexity feels intelligent. It gives the illusion of progress. It makes you feel busy. But complexity is fragile. It breaks under pressure. It requires constant maintenance. It collapses when motivation dips. Simplicity, on the other hand, survives bad days, and bad days are inevitable. The rich don't ask, "How can I do more?" They ask, "How can I make this easier to repeat?" Because repetition is the real engine of wealth, not intensity, not excitement, not inspiration. Consistency. Look closely at how fortunes are built. One business model refined for years, one skill mastered deeply, one investment principle followed patiently, one routine repeated daily. It looks boring from the outside. It looks unimpressive. It looks slow. Until time does its work. Here's a truth most people resist. If something is hard to maintain, you won't maintain it. That applies to diets. That applies to habits. That applies to money strategies. If your plan requires constant willpower, it is already broken. The wealthy design systems that work even when they are tired. Automatic investing, scheduled thinking time, clear rules for decision-making, simple metrics that guide action. No guessing, no chaos, no emotional swings. Simplicity creates clarity. Clarity creates speed. Speed creates advantage. When decisions are simple, action is faster. When action is faster, learning accelerates. When learning accelerates, growth compounds. This is why the rich often seem calm. They are not carrying unnecessary mental weight. They know what matters. They know what doesn't. And they act accordingly. Complexity is often fear in disguise. Fear of missing out. Fear of choosing wrong. Fear of committing. So people hedge, they overthink, they delay. Simplicity requires courage. It forces you to choose. It forces you to commit. It forces you to trust time. Here's a powerful question to ask yourself. What is the simplest version of this that still works? Simplest routine? Simplest income stream? Simplest habit? Simplest next step? You don't need more ideas. You need fewer ideas executed longer. Chapter 53. Patience is a weapon, not a weakness. Patience is misunderstood. Most people think patience means waiting, doing nothing, hoping things improve on their own. That is not patience. That is avoidance. Real patience is active discipline over time. It is the ability to stay committed to the right actions long after the excitement disappears. The wealthy are not impatient. They are precise with their time. They understand something most people never learn. Growth happens quietly. Results arrive late. Rewards are delayed by design. And those delays eliminate the impatient. Think about it. If success happened quickly, everyone would have it. If wealth arrived fast, it would mean nothing. If results came instantly, discipline would be unnecessary. Time is the filter, and patience is how you pass through it. The rich don't rush decisions. They rush preparation, not outcomes. They study before acting. They build before expanding. They test before scaling. Then, once the direction is correct, they stay the course. This is where most people fail. They change direction too soon. They quit before momentum builds. They abandon systems just before they start working. Here's a harsh truth. Most people don't fail because they chose the wrong path. They fail because they didn't stay on the path long enough. They confuse slow progress with no progress. But compounding is invisible at first. The early days feel unrewarding. The middle feels uncertain. The breakthrough looks sudden, but it isn't. It's delayed. Patience allows you to do something rare. Ignore noise, market fluctuations, other people's opinions, trends that come and go, short-term comparisons. The patient person is not distracted. They are not reactive. They are not emotionally hijacked by temporary setbacks. They understand that time favors those who stay consistent. This is why patience feels uncomfortable, because it forces you to sit with uncertainty. No applause, no guarantees, no immediate proof, just belief backed by action, day after day, week after week, year after year. Here is the mindset shift that changes everything. Patience is not waiting for results. Patience is executing without results. Anyone can act when rewarded. Few can act when progress is invisible. That's the difference. Ask yourself this question. If nothing changed for 6 months, would I still do this? If the answer is no, you're chasing validation, not building wealth. If the answer is yes, you're thinking like the long game winners. Because the truth is simple. Those who rush burn out. Those who wait strategically break through. And in the next chapter, you'll learn why focus, not talent, is the real reason some people rise while others stay stuck. Chapter 54. Focus is the force multiplier. Talent is overrated. Intelligence is overrated. Even motivation is overrated. The real separator, the quiet advantage that decides who rises and who stays stuck, is focus. Not intensity, not obsession, not burnout. Sustained focus. Most people are not unsuccessful because they lack ability. They are unsuccessful because their attention is fractured. A little effort here, a little energy there, starting many things, finishing almost nothing. They mistake movement for progress. Focus is the discipline of saying no repeatedly. No to distractions. No to shiny opportunities. No to urgent things that are not important. The wealthy understand this early. Your life moves in the direction of what you consistently pay attention to, not what you think about once, not what you talk about, what you work on quietly, daily, without applause. Look closely at any high achiever. You will not see chaos. You will not see scattered priorities. You will not see constant reinvention. You will see simplicity, one main direction, one core skill, one long-term objective. Everything else is secondary. Focus is uncomfortable because it creates friction. When you focus, you must ignore. When you ignore, people question you. When people question you, doubt appears. This is where most people break. They want focus, but they also want approval. You can't have both. The world rewards clarity, not busyness. Busy people feel productive. Focused people become valuable. And value is what the market pays for. Here's a truth that changes behavior. If everything matters, nothing matters. The wealthy reduce complexity. They strip life down to what moves the needle. They eliminate non-essential commitments. They protect their attention like an asset, because it is one. Focus also means staying in your lane long enough to master it, not jumping industries every year, not chasing every trend, not abandoning skills halfway through development. Mastery compounds. Distraction resets progress to zero. Ask yourself this: what is the one thing that, if improved consistently, would change everything else? That is where your focus belongs. Not 10 goals, not endless lists. One direction, executed daily. This is why focus feels lonely. You stop reacting, you stop explaining, you stop comparing, you start building. And while others are loud, you become effective. Chapter 55. Why most people quit right before it works. Dear viewer, please write in the comments what interested you most in the video. This will help us improve our videos. There is a moment in every meaningful journey that feels like failure, but isn't. A moment where effort no longer produces visible results, where progress slows, where excitement disappears, where doubt gets loud. This is not the end. This is the threshold, and most people turn back right here. Success does not arrive with fireworks. It arrives quietly, often disguised as boredom, repetition, and frustration. You don't suddenly feel confident. You feel tired. You don't feel inspired. You feel uncertain. And that's exactly why most people never cross the line. The brain is wired for short-term feedback. It wants rewards now, validation now, proof now. But real progress operates on delayed returns. The work compounds in silence. The results lag behind the effort, and the mind, unable to see the future payoff, assumes the effort is pointless, so it sabotages. People quit not because they fail, but because they interpret silence as failure. No likes, no praise, no immediate income, no recognition. They assume nothing is happening. In reality, everything is happening beneath the surface. This is where discipline matters more than motivation. Motivation disappears when results slow. Discipline stays when emotions fluctuate. The wealthy understand this phase. They expect it. They don't panic when progress becomes invisible. They keep showing up. Here's the dangerous pattern. You work consistently. You improve quietly. You get close. Then doubt whispers, "Is this worth it? Should I try something else? Maybe this isn't for me." That whisper has ended more dreams than failure ever did. The final stretch before success is mentally brutal because you're no longer a beginner, but not yet a winner. You've invested too much to quit easily, but you haven't won enough to feel secure. This middle zone is where character is built. Understand this. If it feels unusually hard to continue, you are probably closer than you think. The resistance increases before the breakthrough. The pressure rises before the release. Growth does not announce itself. It tests you instead. The wealthy don't ask, "Is this still exciting?" They ask, "Is this still aligned?" If the answer is yes, they stay. Even when it's boring, even when it's lonely, even when no one is watching. Your job in this phase is simple but difficult. Do not change direction. Do not seek comfort. Do not explain yourself. Just continue. Consistency outlasts doubt. Chapter 56. Patience is not passive. It is power. Patience is often misunderstood. People think patience means waiting, doing nothing, hoping things work out. That is not patience. That is avoidance. True patience is active endurance. It is the ability to continue executing while the reward is delayed, to stay disciplined when excitement fades, to remain consistent when urgency disappears. And this is where the long game is won. Most people are not impatient because they are weak. They are impatient because they were trained to expect speed, fast internet, instant messages, same-day delivery, quick wins, overnight success stories. The world conditions the mind to believe that if something doesn't work fast, it doesn't work at all. The wealthy know better. They understand that time multiplies effort, but only if you stay in the game long enough. Patience is not about slowing down your ambition. It's about stretching your time horizon. When you think in weeks, you panic. When you think in months, you hesitate. When you think in years, you become calm. Because urgency disappears when you understand that progress compounds quietly. Here's a truth most people miss. Time is neutral. It doesn't reward effort. It rewards consistency. Two people can work equally hard for 1 year. The one who continues for 5 years wins exponentially. Not because they worked harder, but because they stayed longer. Patience creates leverage. While others quit to chase something new, you deepen skill. While others restart, you refine. While others seek shortcuts, you build foundations. And foundations are invisible until suddenly everything stands taller than expected. The mind resists patience because patience removes drama. No spikes, no crashes, no emotional highs, just repetition. But repetition is where mastery lives, and mastery is what creates freedom. The wealthy don't rush decisions. They let patterns reveal themselves. They don't force outcomes. They create conditions and allow time to do its work. They know that rushed action is often disguised fear. Fear of missing out. Fear of being behind. Fear of wasting time. Ironically, impatience wastes more time than patience ever could. Here's how patience becomes strategy. You stop reacting. You stop pivoting too early. You stop abandoning progress mid-compound. You stay focused on one direction long enough for momentum to appear. And momentum, once built, feels effortless. But it is paid for in patience. Remember this: if you feel behind, it's not because you're late. It's because you're comparing your chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 20. Patience dissolves comparison. It brings you back to your own timeline. Chapter 57. Belief must come before proof. Every breakthrough in history followed the same invisible order. First, belief, then action. Only later, proof. But most people reverse it. They wait for evidence before committing. They wait for results before believing. They wait for validation before acting. And while they wait, nothing changes. The wealthy understand a truth that feels uncomfortable at first. Belief is not a reaction to success. Belief is a requirement for it. You don't believe because you've already won. You win because you believed when there was nothing to show. Think about it. Every successful business began as an idea with no revenue. Every great leader spoke before the crowd listened. Every master started while they still looked like an amateur. If belief required proof, nothing new would ever exist. This is why most people stay stuck. They say, "I'll believe it when I see it. I'll try when I'm confident. I'll act once I'm sure." But confidence is not the cause, it is the effect. The rich move first. They decide internally before the world agrees. Belief is a private decision. It doesn't require applause. It doesn't ask permission. It doesn't explain itself. It simply says, "This matters. I will continue." And that decision quietly rewires behavior. When belief is present, effort becomes natural. You don't need motivation. You don't need reminders. You don't need pressure. You show up because quitting no longer feels logical. That's the power of belief. Here's what belief actually looks like in real life. Continuing after failure. Investing time without immediate reward. Staying focused while others doubt. Acting calm while outcomes are uncertain. Belief is not loud. It doesn't brag. It doesn't announce. It endures. Most people misunderstand belief as arrogance, but real belief is humble. It knows you don't have all the answers, yet it moves anyway. It doesn't demand certainty. It commits to learning. This is why the wealthy can stay calm during chaos. They're not guessing. They're trusting a process they've already decided to honor. They know outcomes fluctuate, but identity does not. And once belief becomes identity, doubt loses influence. Ask yourself this honestly. Where are you waiting for proof instead of creating it? Where are you outsourcing confidence to external results? Because the moment you decide to believe first, your actions change instantly. And action, repeated over time, creates the proof you are waiting for. Chapter 58. Discipline beats motivation. Every time, motivation is emotional. Discipline is structural. And that difference changes everything. Most people wait until they feel like acting. The wealthy act because it's scheduled. They don't ask their mood for permission. They don't negotiate with resistance. They don't rely on excitement to create progress. They rely on systems. Motivation comes and goes. It's high when things are new. It fades when effort becomes repetitive. It disappears the moment discomfort shows up. That's why motivation can never be trusted. Discipline, on the other hand, doesn't care how you feel. It doesn't check your emotions. It simply executes what was decided earlier. Here's a hard truth. If your success depends on motivation, you will stop. Because motivation is reactive. It responds to wins, praise, novelty. Discipline is proactive. It works even when nothing is happening. And wealth is built in those quiet, boring, uncelebrated moments. The rich understand this early. They don't ask, "Do I feel like working today?" They ask, "What is the process I committed to?" Once the decision is made once, it doesn't need to be made again. That's how mental energy is preserved. Most people are exhausted not because they work too much, but because they decide too often. What should I do today? Should I rest or push? Is this worth it? Each question drains energy. Discipline eliminates those questions. This is why the wealthy build routines, not because routines are exciting, but because they remove friction. When something is automatic, it requires less willpower, and willpower is finite. Systems are not. Think about it. If brushing your teeth required motivation, you wouldn't do it consistently, but because it's routine, it happens without thought. That's the level of automation the wealthy aim for, with learning, investing, building, and improving. Discipline is not punishment. It's self-respect in action. It's saying, "I trust my long-term vision more than my short-term feelings." That's power. Here's what discipline actually looks like. Showing up on days you don't feel productive, working even when results are invisible, sticking to the plan after a setback, repeating the basics without drama. It's quiet, it's boring, and it works. Motivation says, "Let's do this." Discipline says, "We already decided." And that difference compounds over years. If you want to know why some people win consistently while others start strong and disappear, this is it. Not talent, not luck, not intelligence. Consistency. Chapter 59. Patience is the secret advantage nobody talks about. Please like and subscribe if you want a better future for your children, your family, and yourself. It's very difficult to achieve success today, but I'm sure you'll succeed. All you have to do is learn and discover new things. The world rewards speed, but wealth rewards patience. And this contradiction confuses most people. They rush, they chase shortcuts, they expect results immediately. When they don't see progress, they quit. The wealthy do the opposite. Patience is not waiting. Patience is working without immediate reward. It's continuing when there's no applause. It's trusting a process long before it proves itself. It's planting seeds you won't harvest this year. That's why patience feels uncomfortable. And that's exactly why it works. Most people overestimate what they can do in 1 year and underestimate what they can do in 10. The rich think in decades. The poor think in days. That difference shapes every decision. Here's the hidden truth. Impatience is expensive. It leads to bad investments. It causes emotional decisions. It forces people to sell too early, quit too soon, switch directions too often. Every time you rush, you reset the compounding clock. The wealthy understand time as leverage. They don't fight it. They align with it. They know that small, consistent actions become massive results only when time is allowed to work. Think about compound interest. Think about skill building. Think about reputation. Think about trust. None of these grow fast. All of them grow powerfully. Patience doesn't mean doing nothing. It means doing the right things long enough without panicking. That's rare. And rarity creates value. Most people can't sit with uncertainty. They need reassurance. They need proof. They need validation. The wealthy tolerate uncertainty longer than others. That's why they win. They invest before it's obvious. They practice before they're praised. They build while others scroll. not because they're fearless, but because they understand delay. Delayed gratification is a superpower. It's choosing growth over comfort, long-term over short-term, vision over impulse. And every time you choose delay, you separate yourself from the crowd. Here's something most people never realize. Time will pass anyway. 5 years will go by, whether you act or not. The only question is who you become during that time. The wealthy let time work for them. Everyone else lets time expose their inconsistency. Patience is not passive. It's disciplined endurance. And once you master it, you stop rushing, you stop comparing, you stop panicking, you start building. Chapter 60. Ownership is the line between freedom and survival. There is a quiet line that divides people financially. On one side are those who sell their time. On the other are those who own systems. This line determines who struggles forever and who eventually becomes free. Most people are taught to trade hours for money. Work harder, work longer, get paid, and as long as the paycheck arrives, it feels safe. But here's the truth. No one explains early enough. Time is the only resource you can never get back. When you sell it once, it's gone forever. The wealthy understand this early. They don't ask, how much does this pay per hour? They ask, what do I own when the work is done? Ownership is leverage. It's income that doesn't stop when you do. It's value that grows while you sleep. It's progress that continues without constant effort. That's why the rich obsess over assets, not because they're greedy, but because they understand math. When you only earn money by being present, your income has a ceiling. There are only so many hours in a day, only so much energy in your body, only so many years in your life. Ownership removes that ceiling. Think about businesses, think about investments, think about intellectual property, think about systems. Each one works even when you don't. That's not luck. That's design. Here's the uncomfortable part. Ownership requires front-loaded effort. You work first, you struggle first, you earn later. Most people can't tolerate that gap. They want immediate reward, immediate validation, immediate certainty. So they stay employees of time. The wealthy are willing to be uncomfortable longer. They build before it pays. They learn before they earn. They invest before they see returns. And that patience compounds. This doesn't mean quitting your job tomorrow. It means thinking like an owner, even while employed. What skills are you building that can scale? What knowledge can be turned into value? What systems can you create that don't rely solely on your presence? Ownership begins as a mindset. You stop asking, how do I get paid more? And start asking, how do I build something that pays repeatedly? Even small ownership matters, a side project, a skill-based service, a digital product, an investment habit. These are seeds. And seeds don't look like trees at first. Most people never plant because they want fruit immediately. The wealthy plant knowing the harvest is delayed. That's the difference. If you understand ownership, you stop racing the clock. You stop fearing time off. You stop feeling trapped because your effort starts multiplying itself. Chapter 61. Emotional control is the real wealth multiplier. Money does not respond to intelligence. It responds to behavior, and behavior is controlled by emotion. This is why some people make brilliant decisions on paper and still stay broke in real life. They panic, they rush, they react. The wealthy understand something most never learn. Emotions are expensive. Fear makes you sell too early. Ego makes you buy too late. Impatience makes you quit before results appear. Every emotional decision quietly taxes your future. Look closely at financial failure. It's rarely caused by lack of opportunity. It's caused by poor reactions. A market drops, panic. A business struggles, doubt. A setback appears, retreat. Emotion hijacks logic. The wealthy train themselves to respond, not react. They pause. They assess. They let time reveal information. This ability alone separates fortunes from frustration. Emotional control doesn't mean suppressing feelings. It means not letting feelings decide actions. You feel fear, but you don't obey it. You feel excitement, but you don't chase it blindly. You feel doubt, but you don't abandon the plan. This discipline is learned through exposure. The wealthy put themselves in situations where emotion is tested. They invest, they build, they risk, and over time, emotion loses its power. Most people avoid discomfort. They stay in familiar financial patterns because uncertainty feels dangerous. But comfort is the most expensive addiction of all. Every breakthrough demands emotional regulation. Waiting when others rush. Holding when others sell. Continuing when others quit. These moments don't look heroic. They look boring. They look lonely. They look uncomfortable. And that's why they work. Emotional mastery is not flashy, but it is unstoppable. Ask yourself, do I make money decisions based on logic or mood? Do I abandon plans when emotions spike? Do I seek certainty before action? Honest answers reveal everything. The moment you stop letting emotions dictate money choices, your trajectory changes. Not instantly, but permanently. Chapter 62, Consistency is quiet, but it never loses. Hey there! Write in the comments what you'd like us to talk about in the next video. We promise to read all the comments and pick the best and most relevant topics. Thanks. Talent gets attention. Consistency builds empires. This is one of the most uncomfortable truths about wealth because it removes the fantasy. Most people want a breakthrough. The wealthy commit to a process. And that difference changes everything. Consistency isn't exciting. It doesn't create viral moments. It doesn't impress people at parties. It doesn't feel powerful in the beginning. But it compounds. And compounding is the language of wealth. Think about how most people approach money. They surge with motivation for a week. They save aggressively for a month. They invest passionately for a quarter. Then life interrupts. Emotion fades. Discipline weakens. The habit disappears. Nothing accumulates long enough to matter. The wealthy do the opposite. They remove intensity and replace it with routine. Small investments, regular learning, predictable execution, not because it feels good, but because it works. Consistency turns average decisions into extraordinary results. Saving a little, often. Investing modestly, regularly. Improving skills incrementally. No single action changes your life, but the repetition does. Most people underestimate what time can do. They expect results too quickly, so they quit too early. Wealth requires patience not because it's slow, but because it's selective. It filters out everyone who can't wait. Consistency is powerful because it's boring, and boredom eliminates competition. Very few people are willing to show up when there's no applause, no feedback, no visible progress. But that's exactly when momentum is forming. The wealthy understand something critical. Results lag behind habits. By the time results appear, the work has already been done. That's why success looks sudden to outsiders, but inevitable to those inside the process. Ask yourself honestly, do I rely on motivation? Or do I rely on systems? Do I work harder when I feel inspired? Or do I work regardless of mood? Your answers explain your current position. Consistency is not perfection. It allows mistakes. It allows bad days. It allows slow progress. What it doesn't allow is quitting. You don't need massive discipline. You need repeatable behavior, something small enough to sustain, simple enough to execute, reliable enough to trust. When consistency becomes identity, results become unavoidable. Final chapter. Think big, live big, leave a mark. Every great transformation ends the same way. Not with noise, not with applause, but with a decision. A quiet, personal decision that says, I will no longer think small. Big thinking is not arrogance. It is responsibility. It is understanding that your potential was not given to be hidden, minimized, or wasted trying to fit in. This audiobook was not meant to entertain you. It was meant to remind you you already have what it takes. You already know more than enough. You already feel the pull toward something greater. Now, it's your move. If this message resonated with you, share it with someone who needs it. And ask yourself one final question. What would my life look like if I truly believed I was capable of more and acted like it every day? That answer is where your next chapter begins.